Do this, and toxic people will never bother you again. Listen closely, because what I am about to tell you is not ordinary advice, not common guidance, not something you hear from the world filled with the noise and confusion. This is a truth that ignites the spirit, stirs the inner life, and awakens a divine confidence within you. Toxic people are not drawn to your weakness. They are drawn to your unawareness of your strength. And today, God is going to shift something inside you so deeply that you will never walk in the same posture again. There is a power God placed inside you that once activated becomes a shield no negativity can penetrate, no manipulation can influence, and no toxic heart can poison. When you stand in this power, toxic people do not simply leave you rise beyond their reach. From the very beginning of your life, God placed inside you a sacred authority, a spiritual dignity that no human being is allowed to violate. But many do, because they sense you do not yet fully recognize the divine force that surrounds you. Toxic people survive by feeding on the spiritually unguarded. They approach the kind-hearted, the compassionate, the ones who try to bring peace even when they suffer. And they think your gentleness is weakness. They think your silence is a surrender. They think your patience is permission. But when God opens your eyes to the spiritual laws that govern your life, your entire atmosphere changes and every toxic presence feels it. You do not even have to confront them. Your inner elevation becomes a divine fire that they cannot stand. There is one thing, one inner shift that when you embrace it, toxic people will never bother you again. And that is this. You must anchor your worth so deeply in God that no human voice, no negative force, and no foolish heart can access the place where your identity is formed. When your worth is rooted in God, toxic people lose all their weapons. They cannot guilt you. They cannot shame you. They cannot manipulate your kindness. They cannot twist your emotions, because your emotions no longer sit in their hands. They sit in the palm of God. Toxic people thrive in the hearts of those who feel they must earn approval. But when God becomes your source of strength, you stop seeking validation from anyone who was never assigned to understand you. You rise with a spiritual posture that says, my value does not come from you. My peace does not depend on you. My blessings do not flow through you. My identity was written by God before I ever met you. And nothing you do or say can rewrite it. When that fire's inside you, toxic people feel the shift. They become uncomfortable. Their access to your emotions is shut. Their hooks break. Their strategies collapse. When you stand in your God-given confidence, you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop opening your heart to people who twist your vulnerability into entertainment. You stop giving chances to those who have no intention of changing. You stop shrinking yourself so others won't feel small. That is the moment right there that God elevates your spirit above the reach of toxicity. You must understand something deep. Toxic people do not leave because you confront them. They leave because you grow beyond the level at which they can function. Toxic hearts cannot breathe in the atmosphere of a God-filled soul. Your growth suffocates their control. Your peace disrupts their chaos. Your clarity exposes their manipulation. Your spiritual awareness invalidates their games. This is why some people suddenly disconnect when God lifts you. They do not understand what happened, but they feel it. They feel the spiritual boundary rise. They feel the atmosphere shift. They feel your spirit become too aligned, too grounded, too protected to be used anymore. And this is what God wants for you. God wants you to be unreachable to chaos. God wants you to be unshakable in the presence of negativity. God wants your peace to be so deeply rooted that no argument can steal it and no betrayal can break it. God wants you to be so spiritually aware that when toxic intentions approach, your discernment recognize them instantly. You must rise into that spiritual maturity where you are no longer affected by people's moods, their judgments, their gossip, their shadows, or their emotional poison. You must rise into that sacred confidence where you say, I belong to God, and no toxic mind has the right to disturb my inner world. There is a truth you must embrace. You cannot control who is toxic, but you can absolutely control who gets access to you. And when God is the one guiding your atmosphere, your access points tighten. You stop entertaining conversations that drain your spirit. You stop participating in arguments that have no purpose. You stop responding to negativity disguised as concern. You stop allowing guilt to pull you back into connections God already set you free from. When you stop feeding toxic people your energy, they stop. When you stop giving them reactions, they lose their influence. When you stop giving them access, their control dissolves. God has given you a spiritual right, yes, a divine right to protect your peace. It is not selfishness. It is obedience to the sacred order God placed within creation. Peace is not something you defend with your fists. It is something you guard with your awareness. When you understand the sacredness of your inner world, you begin treating it like a holy ground. And when something is holy, not everything and not everyone is permitted to enter. If you want toxic people to never bother you again, you must change your spiritual posture. You must stop presenting yourself as someone who is desperate to please everyone. You must stop trying to be understood by people committed to misinterpreting you. You must stop pouring into relationships that drain your soul. You must stop explaining your worth to those who cannot recognize it. You must stop giving apologies to people who should be offering them. You must stop running after people who walk away as if the loss is yours. Because the moment you know who you are in God, the moment you know what God placed inside you, the moment you embrace the dignity of your own soul, everything changes. God did not create you to be a doormat for toxicity. God did not create you to shrink so others feel comfortable. God did not create you to be emotionally accessible to those who do not respect your heart. God did not place you on this earth to be abused, used, drained, or manipulated. God put you here with purpose, with value, with authority, with dignity, and with a spiritual assignment that requires your peace to remain intact. Toxic people sense when someone does not yet know their worth, and they take advantage of it. But when you anchor your life in God, when your identity becomes unshakable, when your spirit becomes rooted in divine truth, toxic people lose their pathway into your life. They cannot deceive you anymore. They cannot manipulate your guilt. They cannot twist your compassion. They cannot break your spirit. They cannot influence your self-image. Because when God defines you, no voice of negativity can redefine you. And you must realize the only reason toxic people ever bothered you is because you were still living as if your peace needed their permission. But your peace is between you and God. Your joy is between you and God. Your clarity is between you and God. Your elevation is between you and God. Once you embrace this, you stop tolerating the things that dishonor your soul. The first step toward a life free from toxic people is not blocking them, confronting them, or exposing them. It is recognizing that your spirit has outgrown their influence. You no longer resonate with their negativity. You no longer entertain their drama. You no longer feel responsible for their emotions. You no longer allow their opinions to shape your direction. When you detach emotionally, toxic people lose their power instantly. You will notice something profound. When you grow spiritually, some people become irritated not because you wrong them, but because your elevation reveals their unwillingness to grow. And toxic hearts cannot stand to see someone rise because your rise exposes their stagnation. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your alignment exposes their disorder. Your clarity exposes their confusion. They begin to distance themselves not because you push them away, but because they cannot survive in the atmosphere of peace God is establishing around you. You must reach the point where your spirit becomes so aligned with God that you no longer fear losing people. Because when God becomes your source, you realize anybody you lose was never your foundation. The moment you truly internalize this, toxic people lose every chain they once had on your emotions. And hear this clearly. God is not asking you to hate anyone. God is asking you to rise. Toxic people fall away naturally when you rise. You do not fight them. You outgrow them. You do not argue with them. You see through them. You do not fear them. You recognize their spiritual immaturity. And with compassion but without attachment, you let them go. This is the spiritual authority God wants you to walk in. The authority that says, I choose peace because God placed peace within me. I choose clarity because God guides my steps. I choose boundaries because God entrusted me with my own soul. I choose elevation because God called me higher. Do this, anchor your worth in God so deeply that no toxic person can reach it. And I promise you, your life will transform. Toxic people will not just stop bothering you. They will become irrelevant to your spirit. Their words will fall powerless. Their intentions will dissolve. Their presence will fade. You will walk with a light that frustrates every dark intention. You will move with a confidence that cancels every form of manipulation. You will rise with a dignity that forces every toxic presence to bow before the authority God placed in your spirit. And once you taste this level of peace, this sacred God-given peace, you will never allow anyone to disturb it again. When you begin to walk in this God-centered awareness, something extraordinary happens within you. Your soul becomes untouchable. You may still hear the voices of negativity, but they will no longer enter your spirit. You may still encounter unhealthy attitudes, but they will no longer influence your direction. You may still witness the behaviors of those who operate from insecurity, envy, and emotional corruption, but you will feel no pull, no reaction, no disturbance. Why? Because God has become your anchor, your stabilizer, your internal fortress. And when God fortifies the inside, nothing on the outside can shake you. So many people suffer from the weight of toxic individuals because their inner foundation is fragile. They rely on others to confirm their value, to affirm their decisions, to validate their emotions, to make them feel seen. But when God becomes your foundation, you no longer crave what people can never provide. You no longer chase after voices that echo emptiness. You no longer bend yourself to fit into expectations that were never meant for you. You rise, and you rise cleanly, free from the need to perform for acceptance, free from the fear of being judged, free from the anxiety of disappointing others. You rise into a spiritual identity rooted entirely in God's definition of you, and nothing is more liberating than that. Toxic people thrive where there is confusion. They take advantage of those who are unsure of themselves. They target those who doubt their place in the world. But once God sets your mind in order, once God sharpens your awareness, once God strengthens your discernment, toxic people have nowhere to plant their influence. The soil of your soul becomes too fertile for their poisonous seeds. Your mind becomes too clear for their manipulation to take root. Your heart becomes too guarded for their chaos to find refuge. God lifts you into a state of internal clarity so powerful that toxicity suffocates in your presence. You must understand something essential. Every time you try to fix a toxic person, you weaken yourself. But every time you strengthen your connection with God, you rise beyond the reach of toxic individuals. Your spiritual elevation is your greatest protection. You cannot drag anyone out of their darkness, but you can walk fully into your light. And when you do, the darkness cannot follow you. Toxic individuals do not let go because they want to. They let go because they cannot breathe in the atmosphere God places around you. There is another layer you must embrace. Toxic people are not just those who harm you with their action. Sometimes they are those who disturb you with their expectation. They demand your time but offer no value. They pull on your heart but give no respect. They appear supportive but carry hidden jealousy. They look at you with smiles but speak of you with bitterness. And if you are not spiritually alert, you will confuse their proximity with loyalty. But spiritual maturity teaches you that not everyone who stands near you stands with you. Not everyone who praises you honors you. Not everyone who advises you protects you. And not everyone who listens to you believes in you. When God sharpens your spiritual vision, you begin to see people not as they present themselves, but as they truly are. This God-given clarity gives you the courage to detach from those who drain your spirit. Detachment is not anger, it is wisdom. Detachment is not resentment, it is obedience to the inner call of God. Detachment is not coldness, it is protection of your peace. When you detach from what harms you, you make room for what heals you. When you release what dishonors you, you create space for what God wants to send you. When you walk away from the destructive, you walk toward the divine. And every step you take into God's alignment, reduce the influence toxic people have over your mind and heart. You must learn that peace is not something you stumble into. It is something you cultivate. God gives you the seed of peace, but you are responsible for guarding the soil in which it grows. If you allow toxic voices to continue entering your life, they will uproot the seeds of peace before they ever mature. If you allow toxic energy to surround your daily environment, it will choke out the spiritual clarity God is trying to build within you. You must become intentional about protecting what God placed inside your spirit. Not everyone deserves access to your mind. Not everyone deserves access to your heart. Not everyone deserves access to your assignment. Guarding your peace is not just a suggestion, it is a spiritual duty. There is a moment, God wants to bring you into a moment where you recognize the sacredness of your inner world. A moment where you realize how powerful it is to be chosen, guided, and strengthened by God. A moment where you see that your spirit is not ordinary, your destiny is not random, and your journey is not accidental. When you see your life through the lens of God's intention rather than people's opinions, you stop letting toxic individuals define what you deserve. You stop allowing them to dictate your mood. You stop giving them the authority to influence your emotional weather. God becomes your source of identity, and you begin living from the inside out, not from the outside in. This is the shift that transforms everything. When you stop reacting, toxic people thrive when you react. They feed on your emotional responses. They grow stronger when you try to explain yourself, defend yourself, or justify your decisions. They weaponize your emotions against you. But when you stop reacting, when you remain silent, grounded, and unmoved, something breaks in the spiritual realm. Their hold over your emotions collapses. Their strategies fail. Their attempts to provoke you fall flat. They realize that the access they once had has been revoked, not with anger, not with confrontation, but with peace. And this peace is not ordinary. It is peace that carries the weight of God's presence. It is peace that intimidates toxic intentions. It is peace that frustrates manipulation. It is peace that drives negativity away. Toxic people do not know what to do when they cannot control your mood. They lose power when they lose your reaction. And the moment you master the art of inner stillness, you become unreachable to anyone who thrives on chaos. Another powerful truth is this: God uses toxic people to reveal your spiritual maturity. They expose what is unsettled within you. They highlight the areas where you are still emotionally reactive. They bring forth the insecurities that must be healed. If someone's words still wound you deeply, God may be showing you an unhealed place. If someone's behavior still triggers fear or anger, God may be showing you a part of yourself that needs strengthening. Toxic individuals are not always obstacles. Sometimes they are mirrors. They show you the places God wants to fortify. And once God fortifies those places, no one can ever weaponize those wounds again. The more you grow, the less toxic people affect you. Their words begin to sound empty. Their presence feels distant. Their influence fades. Their power dissolves. What once shook you now feels insignificant. What once broke you now feels meaningless. What once angered you now feels irrelevant. Why? Because God has rebuilt you from the inside out. God has restructured your emotional foundation. God has matured your spirit beyond their reach. And this growth is permanent. When God elevates your spirit, there is no returning to the patterns that once enslaved you. You must also learn that distancing yourself from toxic people does not require their agreement. You do not need their approval to protect your peace. You do not need their understanding to honor your well-being. You do not need their permission to walk away. If God is leading you to detach, then detachment is obedience. If God is nudging your spirit to create distance, then distance is protection. You are not responsible for how others interpret your boundaries. You are responsible for honoring the divine wisdom God places in your heart. And when God teaches you to set boundaries, they are not walls of bitterness, they are gates of wisdom. Boundaries are not built to keep love out, they are built to keep poison away. Boundaries are not signs of weakness, they are signs of spiritual maturity. Boundaries are not selfish, they are sacred. Toxic people hate boundaries because boundaries expose their intentions. Boundaries remove the freedom they once had to violate your emotions. Boundaries reveal who they truly are. And when you stand firm in your boundaries, they either change their behavior or remove themselves from your life. Either outcome is a blessing. When God strengthens your spirit, you begin to understand that silence is a weapon. You don't have to argue, you don't have to prove, you don't have to fight, you don't have to explain. Silence speaks loudly. Silence communicates maturity. Silence expresses strength. Silence cuts the roots of toxicity faster than confrontation ever could. Because silence shows that your spirit is no longer available to play games. At this stage of your spiritual growth, you begin attracting a new atmosphere. Toxic people drift away because your energy no longer matches theirs. Your vibration becomes too elevated for their negativity. Your spirit becomes too stable for their chaos. Your mind becomes too disciplined for their distractions. And while you may not understand why certain people suddenly distance themselves, you must realize that God is cleansing your environment. God is removing what cannot follow you into your next level. God is protecting your destiny. This is the final truth every soul must embrace. When God becomes your refuge, no toxic person can invade your inner world. When God becomes your compass, no manipulator can mislead your steps. When God becomes your foundation, no betrayer can shake your identity. When God becomes your source of worth, no critic can diminish your confidence. When God becomes your guide, no deceiver can cloud your judgment. When God becomes your healer, no wound can limit your future. When God becomes your protector, no toxic presence can enter the sacred space of your peace. You are not created to live in the shadows of toxic people. You are not created to walk in emotional bondage. You are not created to be diminished by the insecurity of others. You were created by God with a purpose, with a vision, with a dignity, and with a spiritual authority. And once you awaken to this truth, toxic people lose their power forever. When God begins elevating your spirit, something profound awakens within you. You start valuing your inner world more than the outer noise. You realize that your peace is not just a feeling, it is a gift from God that must be protected with the same seriousness you would protect your physical life. You begin to understand that every distraction is a spiritual threat, every toxic voice is a spiritual intrusion, and every manipulative relationship is a spiritual hindrance. Your sensitivity sharpens, your awareness deepens, and you start discerning not only what people say, but what their presence does to your spirit. You begin to measure every relationship not by how it looks on the outside, but by how it affects you on the inside. And the moment you make that shift, toxic people lose their room in your life. God wants you to understand that the greatest battles you face are not external. They happen inside you, in your mind and in your emotions. Toxic people are only effective when they find an open door in your inner world. They enter through insecurity, through fear, through loneliness, through emotional hunger. But when God fills those empty places with the spiritual strength, those doors close forever. You become spiritually sealed. Your heart becomes guarded by divine protection. Your mind becomes fortified by divine truth. Toxic influences approach, but they find nothing to hook onto. They come with their old strategies, but they fall flat. They attempt to trigger your old wounds, but the wounds are healed. They try to reopen the past, but the past no longer has power. You become unshakable, not because of force, but because of inner transformation. One of the most liberating realization comes when you understand that toxic people do not destroy you, they reveal you. They reveal the parts of yourself that need strengthening. They expose the areas where you have not fully surrendered to God's guidance. They show you where your boundaries were too loose, where your emotions were too unguarded, where your trust was given too quickly. And once God reveals these things, you are no longer the same. You evolve. You grow. You mature, you rise with a new level of spiritual intelligence that no toxic person can exploit again. This is why God allows some people to enter your life, not to break you, but to teach you. They teach you the weight of discernment. They teach you the necessity of boundaries. They teach you the importance of emotional stewardship. They teach you that compassion must be balanced with wisdom. They teach you that loyalty must be reserved for those whose hearts are aligned with righteousness. And when the lesson is complete, God removes their influence because their purpose has been fulfilled. You are no longer vulnerable in the same way. You no longer respond the way you once did. You no longer feel drawn to the chaos you once tolerated. You no longer feel obligated to fix what you did not break. There is a sacred strength that comes when you stop looking at people through the lens of fear and start seeing them through the lens of a divine perspective. You begin to identify energies before they become problems. You sense intentions before they are spoken. You feel the disturbance in your spirit before the danger becomes visible. This is the guidance of God. It is a spiritual sensitivity, a protective inner signal that alerts you when someone is not aligned with your destiny. When God sharpens this awareness, you no longer need evidence to step away. Your spirit becomes the evidence. And when your spirit speaks, you must listen. Do this, and toxic people will never bother you again. Learn to withdraw from anyone who pulls you away from the voice of God within you. You must reach the point where your loyalty to your peace outweighs your loyalty to any connection. When the presence of someone brings confusion, God is telling you something. When the presence of someone brings heaviness, your spirit is giving a warning. When the presence of someone drains your energy, God is showing you that your destiny is too important to be entangled with people who cost you your clarity. And when God reveals these things, it is not cruelty, it is protection. You must learn the art of a silent distance. Not every relationship needs closure. Not every situation needs an explanation. Not every betrayal needs confrontation. There are moments when God says, walk away quietly, because sometimes responding gives toxic people more access. Sometimes explaining gives them more information to use against you. Sometimes defending yourself gives them more opportunities to manipulate your emotions. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Silence makes the toxic heart uncomfortable because they thrive on reaction. When you take that reaction away, you take their power away. But you will only be able to maintain this silence when you trust God more than you trust your emotions. Your emotions want immediate relief. Your spirit wants long-term peace. Toxic people often produce short-lived emotional storms that make you feel the need to respond. But when God becomes your emotional anchor, you no longer trust the urgency of the moment. You trust the wisdom of your inner guidance. You trust the still, calming direction that God places in your heart. You trust that silence will accomplish what confrontation could never do. You trust that distance will reveal truth more powerfully than words ever could. Real spiritual power comes when you stop fighting toxic people and start outgrowing them. When you elevate your mindset, their insults lose meaning. When you elevate your spirit, their anger loses impact. When you elevate your purpose, their presence loses relevance. And elevation does not require effort, it requires alignment. When you align with God, you rise effortlessly. You rise above arguments. You rise above jealousy. You rise above manipulation. You rise above drama. You rise above their attempts to pull you into emotional chaos. And when you rise, toxic people are left behind. God wants to raise you to a spiritual level where you no longer absorb the energy of the people around you. Instead, your energy influences the environment. Your peace becomes stronger than their chaos. Your clarity becomes louder than their confusion. Your self-control becomes more powerful than their dysfunction. Toxic people then begin to avoid you, not because they do not want access, but because your spiritual presence exposes their internal disorder. They cannot hide behind their masks around someone who walks in divine awareness. They cannot pretend around someone who sees with spiritual eyes. They cannot manipulate someone who listens to God before listening to people. The more you grow, the more you will understand that distance is a blessing. God does not separate you from people to punish you. God separates you to protect you. When someone begins to disrupt the peace God placed within you, God creates circumstances that naturally distance you. This is divine intervention, not rejection. This is divine redirection, not isolation. And when you embrace this separation, you begin to flourish. Your mind clears, your heart strengthens, your spirit expands, your purpose sharpens. You discover that peace is not the absence of people, it is the presence of God. You were never meant to carry toxic people into your destiny. Your hands must be free to receive what God has prepared for you. Your heart must be whole to love in a healthy way. Your mind must be clear to hear divine instruction. Your spirit must be strong to handle the weight of your calling. And toxic people disrupt all of this. They drain your energy, confuse your purpose, cloud your judgment, and delay your growth. But the moment you choose God over their presence, the moment you choose clarity over chaos, the moment you choose peace over approval, toxic people begin to fall away like dust shaken off your feet. There is a moment God is leading you toward a moment when you no longer fear the loss of people because you understand that what God removes is always inferior to what God brings. A moment where you no longer need the applause of those who do not value your spirit. A moment where you no longer internalize the words of those who do not speak from truth. A moment where you recognize that your destiny is too precious to waste on those who do not honor your heart. When you reach that moment, toxic people become powerless, irrelevant, and distant. And there is one more truth you must allow to penetrate deep within you. You cannot stop toxic people from being who they are, but you can stop giving them access to who you are becoming. You cannot control their behavior, but you can control your boundaries. You cannot change their intentions, but you can refine your discernment. You cannot purify their hearts, but you can protect your own. This is the wisdom God wants to place within you. Wisdom that frees you from unnecessary battles. Wisdom that protects your destiny. Wisdom that elevates your spiritual sensitivity.